It gives me great pleasure to introduce our guest speaker. You'll see her on the video here. Ammaarah Martinus is the Director of Policy, Research and Analysis at the Western Cape Department of the Premier in the city of Cape Town. So she's based within the Western Cape government in South Africa. Her focus is on innovation, research, policy development, and strategic implementation. And really, she's led behavioral insights programs across the policy and strategy units. And I'd like to say, really been a pioneer on the role of behavioral insights in government across the continent. And we were lucky to meet back in 2018, actually, in a major Africa-led conference on behavioral insights. So Ammaarah is really leading this work within Africa, and we're very grateful that she's now going to kind of present some of the work that's underway and give some examples from what's happened in Cape Town and how these tools have been used. So I will stop my share and hand over, Ammaarah. The floor is yours.
Thanks so much, Sabrina, for that wonderful introduction. I actually feel quite honored to be here and to sort of speak to people that I don't normally get an opportunity to speak to. So as Sabrina said, I'll be taking you through a little bit of a practical example of how we've worked together. So basically, I am sitting in the Western Cape government, which is a provincial government or regional government, and we worked with our partners at the city government, which is the city of Cape Town, that basically we worked together on a particular strategy. So really just to say that back in 2014, and I'm sort of showing you this slide, a very popular dam in the Western Cape known as Theewaterskloof Dam was quite populated with water, and you can see it's quite lush. And then just a couple of years later, in 2018, this is exactly the same dam, and you'll see it here. You know, it's quite a barren land with sort of very flat and unfertile land with no water. And so in the space of about 4 years, the city of Cape Town and the broader sort of Western Cape province really experienced the most severe drought since the 1880s. So this was really a result of not having regular rainfall over a period of 3 years, and which quickly de-escalated to us actually being in a drought. So I wanted to share with you a little bit of a timeline of how things actually went and what happened in each of these phases. So really, the Western Cape was declared a disaster area in 2017. In between all of that year, you'll see that a plethora of certain water level restrictions were imposed by the city of Cape Town. And then in March of 2018, the city of Cape Town announced their Day Zero plan. And I'll tell you a little bit more about Day Zero in the upcoming slides. And then what then culminated in
hello, Sabrina.
Hi.
Ammaarah, okay. I was just wondering if it was me losing the connection or
No.
we lost our speaker. Let me check.
Yeah, I can also hear as well.
Yeah, let's check. See if she can reconnect quickly. Just as she was getting started, huh?
Well, I don't know. I mean, so in South Africa at the moment, we're having these rolling national power cuts for 2 hours at a time. And so often the power goes off and then you have to reconnect. So I don't know if her power might have just gone off, but let's see. I'm sure she'll be able to reconnect quickly. If not, we can adapt.
Yeah, maybe we'll wait for a few more seconds to see if she comes back. Otherwise, I suggest we might go on with the program. And then we bring her back.
To her.
Yeah, we go back to her as soon as.
Okay, she's left the room. Okay, yeah, I see she's not in the room. Hopefully she can.
Yeah, must be connection issues, huh?
Sure. Oh no, so I can say hi to a couple more people we've seen join. Mawe, hi again.
Yeah, we have 28 people in the room now, which
hi,
is
Doreen.
nice.
Great.
Hello, Sabrina.
Hi, nice to see you again.
Same here.
Happy, Dorcas, hi, welcome everyone. Okay, so let's just give Ammaarah hi Dorcas. Let's give her maybe just 30 more seconds, and if not, Constance can jump in and then we can adapt if need be. Sorry about the connection, everyone. I think we're all dealing sometimes with this happening during presentations.
This does happen, and hopefully she'll be able to get back on, because I was getting very excited when she first started, even with the timeline and those first photos. That was really amazing what happened in South Africa.
Yeah, maybe we could actually ask a question. I mean, obviously, Ammaarah has been discussing about behavioral insights. Does anyone have a sort of decision science or behavioral insights background, or they've done anything with that? It would be great in the chat to give us that. Ammaarah's back.
I think, yeah, we've got her back.
Hi.
I'm back. Sorry, I think load shedding that's happening. And
no, I did explain. I was like, I think her power might have gone and she might have to swap over and hotspot or something. So no problem. If you can reshare your screen, we'll just keep going. We were all on the edge of our seats there saying, no.
Okay, so I'm not sure where you like dropped me, but
next slide here. Just start from here, I think. This is where we were. The first slide. Yeah. Perfect.
Okay, sorry about all that. But okay, so let's rewind. So really what happened in 2017 was that the province, so the Western Cape province in South Africa was declared a disaster area. And what that comes with is many restrictions, and some of them were placed on water. And you'll see level 4 and 5 restrictions, which basically meant that you had a limit on, for example, filling your swimming pool or watering your gardens. So these were really serious restrictions that the city of Cape Town actually imposed on citizens. What happened in January 2028 was where the city really announced that we could only use 50 liters of water per household per day. And then in March 2018, the city of Cape Town also had a very ambitious Day Zero campaign, which was a communications campaign, which I'll tell you about just a little bit later. So really just to tell you about how things actually went. We went from being in a disaster zone, which was basically from the Day Zero campaign, where all the taps would run down in the city of Cape Town, which would also be one of the only big cities to actually run out of water, right to it being completely cancelled. And I think that this was something that was as a result of serious behaviour change within the city and more broadly in the province. So really what I'm going to tell you now is how it looked like in terms of the number of liters of water that people had to reduce by. So during the drought, consumers reduced their water consumption from 540 liters to 280 liters per household. And this is quite massive. And, I suppose it's difficult to quantify what this might look like, but it is large, quite large. And so what I really wanted to take you through today is sort of how did we actually achieve this huge behavioral change? How did people do this? What worked well? What didn't work so well? And to also maybe, give you something to think about when thinking about your own strategies. So I wanted to share with you what made it difficult for people to change their behavior. So the first thing was that under each level of water restrictions, so whether that was 4B or 5B, whatever it was, I don't think, and myself included, I didn't quite understand what that meant. So when the city of Cape Town was saying level 4B, what does that mean? I had no idea. As an ordinary citizen, I didn't quite understand what they meant. And I'm not sure, Sabrina, if you remember that there used to be these sort of billboards on our highways which said that we are now at level 4B water restrictions. But like, so what? What does that mean, to an ordinary citizen? Like, I have no idea. And in fact, when the city introduced level 5 restrictions, this actually had a perverse effect on consumption. So people were actually using more water as a result of the restriction. And I think that this is also very important to take into consideration from a behavioral perspective. So if you tell people they can't do something, more often than not, they probably will do it. And if they don't understand something, they probably won't comply. I think there was also different messages from the different levels of government. So if for those of you that may not know, in South Africa, we have 3 spheres of government, which are interdependent and interrelated. So looking at national, provincial, as well as the local level. And what some of the conflicting messages were that national government were saying that Western Cape were not in a state of disaster. We, of course, sitting at the provincial government, said that we were. And local municipalities actually had to deal with their citizens because they were at the coalface. And then the third aspect was about citizens, and I think that this was a very important one, where citizens actually had little trust in authorities and transparency of the information. So how did they know that the information that they were provided with was actually accurate? People felt at that point that there was something being hidden. And I think this came through quite strongly in some of the protests and placards being paraded at the time. So really, where everything actually came to a head was in January 2018, where the mayor at the time released a press statement saying, "It is quite unbelievable that a majority of people do not seem to care and are sending all of us headlong towards day zero." And so day zero, as I said, is the day that the taps will run dry. At this point, we must assume that they will not change their behavior and that the chance of reaching day zero on 21 April 2018 is now very likely. And so this is when we saw that people's behavior actually changed. It was really where the severity of the drought and the mayor's message actually hit home quite significantly. So what really made it easy for people to comply? So this communication campaign, which was put out by the city government, said that everybody would get a maximum of 25 litres per day. So you'd remember that at the very sort of point of the drought, we were saying that people were given 50 litres per household, but at the point of day zero, this would be decreased to 25 litres. And, if you think about it, 25 litres is not that much. You could easily drink 2 litres of water just per day. So it's just really thinking about what this would mean in reality for people. So it became very real and very relevant for our citizens. The second thing was that people would have to travel to a water distribution point every day. Very inconvenient. I don't think any of us would really want to do that willingly. And so this really made things really a hassle. And of course, people didn't want to do that. And it also was not really clear about, when the city would actually run out of water, what would happen then. And all this uncertainty, the point of hassle, and also just understanding that if we don't change our behavior, we are not going to be able to really survive. And I think that without water, it's very difficult to survive. So I wanted to share with you some of the communications collateral that the City of Cape Town used. This one in particular was probably one of my favorites because it really illustrated what 50 litres look like. Because if you said to me, and I'm not sure anybody on the call, you are allowed to use 50 litres of water per day, what does that actually mean? How do I take that into my space in terms of how many litres I need to spend per day? So what they did was they actually broke down, if you're flushing a toilet, it actually takes 9 litres of water for a single flush. If you're doing dishwashing, that would be 9 litres of water as well. Shower, 10 litres. So this really gave a graphic image of what 50 litres would look like per household per day. And so it was easy for people to understand where they needed to actually cut down. Maybe I don't do as much laundry. Maybe I take less showers, take shorter showers. And so this was really important for people to really understand and make it relevant for their own lifestyle and where they were coming from. I think the second thing, which I also found a little bit cheeky and was quite really humorous, was this one, where it said that, you know, if it's yellow, let it mellow. So I'm just going to like pause there a little bit for you to think about. But this was really about, you know, if you're going to the toilet and you're going for a wee, you don't need to flush the toilet. And honestly, this became probably one of the best sayings that we've had in Cape Town and in the Western Cape, and you'll see that a lot of the collateral is still on bed and breakfasts, other establishments where you have a permission cubicle and you're able to kind of do this kind of thing to be able to save water. The third element was an online water map. So I'm not sure you can see this so clearly, but really what this is a grid of houses and a neighborhood where the green spots are really where people's consumption was higher than their neighbors. And I think what the point of this was that you were able to see your neighbors' consumption in comparison to your own. So you could basically hold each other accountable. You know, you were able to see whether it also inspired an element of competition, which really did spark some controversy. And I think it was also people felt that this was a little bit invasive from a privacy perspective, but at the same time, it was not meant to be a name and a shaming tool, but rather a tool which would really help a community in a street, in a community, to really see what their water consumption was versus what they were meant to be consuming per day. So I want to also share with you a study which my team did at the provincial government. We saw an opportunity that the City of Cape Town were really looking at households, so individual behaviour. What we wanted to do is to see how we could change behaviour at schools. So for context, our schools normally range between 800 to 1,000 learners per school. So if you could change behaviour at even one school, you'd actually be able to make a massive saving with regard to water. So the project was called the Smart Water Meter Challenge. And as you can see, this was a partnership project, and we ran it with Stellenbosch University, the University of Cape Town, a retailer who some of you may know, ShopRite, as well as a startup fund, Bridget, that has been based at Stellenbosch University, as well as a radio media station, Cape Talk. And essentially what the project comprised of was technology maintenance and behavior change, working in tandem to be able to really promote water conservation at schools. So what the project looked like is that we developed a smart water meter project, and we developed a smart meter and we paired it onto an existing meter to really see whether we could track leaks, track the flow rate, if there were any basic maintenance repairs that needed to be done, so like a leaky tap or toilet or whatever it is, we were able to repair it and actually have a saving of 28% within 5 days. We layered on top of that our behavioural interventions, which really led to water usage reductions of between 15 to 26% over the 7 months of the project. And I'm really excited to say this, that those schools that were involved in the project back in 2018 still do use the smart water meters. So just to talk a little bit about the communications that we used. So you'll see here on the right-hand side, this was a copy of a poster that was used. And so my team worked with all of these partners to really say, you know, simple things like your school's name, how many kiloliters of water you used last week, what the total cost was, what the percentage change was, increase or decrease, and also looking at the competition element. So looking at the top 3 schools in your neighborhood and how they fared in comparison to you. This builds in this necessary competition element. Human beings like a good old competition, and I think it's important to really make sure that you get the best out of it. What was really useful in this project is that the total amount of money that they saved could actually be used to either plow back into the school by hiring new teachers and also by really doing other maintenance, which was important. So this was really a win-win, and we created a competition where schools would be given prizes where they actually saved the most money and did the most maintenance. And so this has been one of the things that we've been able to really see big savings from, and using partnerships as the basis for actually making this work. So I think that just to sort of end and share with you a couple of takeaways. One of the things that was quite apparent, both from the Smart Water Meter project at a provincial level, as well as the Day Zero campaign, is that the communication needs to be clear, it needs to be salient, it needs to be consistent. So don't come with different messages saying different things, because people become confused and they lose trust. And trust is very important if you want to effect behavior change. Also be as transparent as possible. Take accountability as a government, as an organization. If we've messed up, say so. Don't hide things. I think that's critically important. And what we also saw, behavioral insights interventions could actually have a larger effect than legal restrictions. So what we saw, and as I explained to you, those legal restrictions which limited the amount of water meant really not so much if you didn't explain to people what that 50 liters or 67 liters look like and what the impact is for them. And so looking at just punitive measures may not be the answer in itself, but also layering on a behavioral intervention is critically important to make things work. And then the third takeaway is that nudges, in fact, can have a long-term effect on behavior. What we see is that some people used to use buckets in their showers, and some people still do that. A lot of people still have JoJo tanks, which they use to collect and to harvest rainwater. A lot of people still do use their permission cubicles. And so this has really shown that it doesn't need to be big things, but small nudges can, in fact, have a long-term effect on behavior. And I'll stop there. Thanks, Sabrina.
Wow, thank you so much. Certainly having kind of lived through the drought. So I think just absolutely, thank you so much for taking us through that and really emphasizing about, just the power of kind of behavior change and these nudges from really instigating change. So thank you so much. That was such a brilliant overview. I just want to open it up to the floor. If there are questions, Busani, go ahead, and then we'll go to Mawe.
Thanks, Sabrina. Thanks very much, Ammaarah, for your presentation. I'm keen to find out what really was the turning point that led the residents to, in fact, change their behavior towards saving water. What would you say was really the heart that really led to that transformation? And then maybe I'll also put a second question there also, like, what challenges did you face in rolling this out? Thank you.
Okay, Ammaarah, do you want to take that? And then we'll go to the next question.
Sure. Thanks for the question, Busani. I think, what led to the transformation, I think it was the idea that we could actually not have water in our taps. And so I think anybody in their right mind would not want that to happen. I think it was critically important to emphasize that if you don't do this, the fact and the reality of not having water in your taps is actually going to happen. And so I think it was, sometimes you say something to someone, it doesn't quite land, they don't think it's affecting them. But as soon as you make it relevant to them, as soon as you say, you know what, if you're not going to do this, this is going to happen. That is when we actually saw that turning point, and that was in 2018. It was right at the end, so it took a while for people to actually get to grips with the fact that, we're actually running out of water. If you continue along this path, there is a real possibility that we won't have water. And I think that it was this realization by people about, I have to now go and stand in a queue to collect water for not just the small population of South Africa, and many people do that already, but for everybody. So whether you're rich, whether you're poor, you're going to have to go to a collection point to get your water. And I don't think anybody really wants to do that. So I think it was really important for the city of Cape Town to really emphasize that and to make sure that message came across. The other part about challenges, I think that was part of the challenge. It was about, I wasn't personally part of the communication campaign specifically, but some of the things that really came out in my conversations with the officials that were driving it was that, people were just not listening. It was a consistent thing about, you have to use 67 liters. Then it was, 50 liters, but nobody was really listening. And that is why they needed to come up with a plan to really be able to get the message across in a relevant and appropriate way. I hope that answers this, yeah.
That's
Thank
great.
you.
Maury.
Yes, thank you, Sabrina. And that was a very powerful presentation for me. What I just want to find out, I think I heard you mention you were not really part of the communication, but I wanted to find out whether these strategies were pulled out in the end by interacting with the people to know what specific messages would work on them, or were these drawn from the failure of the initial strategy? Thank you.
Thanks, Mawe. That's actually a very excellent question. I must be honest, for me, this is just my opinion. I think that the city of Cape Town, I think, was probably forced into a corner. I mean, I can't say this definitively, but I can say that, if people are not listening, we as government sometimes, and I can think about other topics, you can tell people something, you can say it in one way, you can say it in a different way. If people are not listening, it's very difficult to actually expect them to change their behavior. And so I think that they tried to get some behavioral experts on board. They got a communications sort of firm on board as well. And I think they really work in tandem to be able to understand what is the reason for people not understanding. And I think that part of the problem was that people didn't understand what 4B meant or level 5B meant. So part of the strategy was to break down, and I think that is why they actually broke down that those 50 liters into a toilet flush is 9 liters, a shower is 10 liters. So people can actually understand. I mean, I myself didn't understand it. So I think, how do we expect other people to understand it if we ourselves don't? And I think that was, for me, a critical turning point, just from an outsider perspective. I think, as I said, we were more involved on the school behavior change product, but as a citizen, that was probably one of the things that I didn't understand, and I couldn't quite reconcile with why I needed to change behavior if I had no idea what the government was talking about.
Great. I think that's a really nice answer. We have a couple in the chat box as well. I'll just, we've got a couple of comments, but Chimwemwe has a question and just asked, what procedures have now been in place as a way of not having the same problem faced again? And Chimwemwe, if there's anything else you want to ask? Or was that, did I say it right?
Yeah, according to the presentation, I can say there are more problems that the people faced there due to drought. But mostly the people do connect their personal problems with politics. And I can say maybe the people were accusing the government just because of the problem that was there. So as government, what have you put in place so that that problem should not repeat?
Thanks for that. I can't unfortunately talk for the whole of government, but I can certainly speak for myself. So one of the things, as I said, is about trust. And I think this is not a South African problem, it's actually a global problem. And I think if you don't have your citizens' trust, nothing you can say can actually change their minds. So you need to always be sure that you are having honest messaging, having regular interactions with them. So whether that is on social media, whether that is in person, I think our premier, as an example, he has a daily digicon, which is basically where he also goes through his calendar for the week. And this is completely transparent. He says on this thing, I've got a cabinet meeting, I've got this happening, I've got that happening. So people of the Western Cape are fully versed about what he's doing, which is always very welcomed. I think it also just eliminates that skepticism or what is government doing? We've really taken an approach from a Western Cape government perspective that we want to be open and transparent with whatever we do. Even in terms of how we've managed the COVID-19 crisis, it has been on a regular basis. Every single day, the head of the health department comes on and says, how many cases, what do we do? Doing, what is each day? Okay, we actually have nothing to hide. This is what's happening. If things are bad, we will tell you. If they are good, we will tell you that too. So I think that has been one of the strategies that we've employed. From a drought perspective, we've been very lucky because we've actually had rainfalls which has been quite extreme, in fact. So our dams are full at the moment, but I can say that we've got my bucket in my shower. So, I still am taking that well. So it has been a consistent thing for me. And I know many other people have done the same. I hope that answers it.
That's great. Thanks, Ammaarah. And I think we're losing you there a bit connection-wise, but I'm grateful you're still here. Patrick's just got a question. Yeah, I think it's a bit similar to Chimoiwe's, but what other mechanisms were put in place that both government and the citizens, apart from changing behavior? So were there other sort of approaches to dealing with the drought apart from behavior change? And what other mechanisms were put in place? And then just before you respond, Gabriel's just said that they had a similar issue in Bulawayo and Zimbabwe in terms of the drought and focusing on water saving. And Dorcas was saying, it's really about engaging people being affected when looking at behavior change. So I think people are really responding to your discussion. So thank you so much. So if you can take that last question, Ammaarah, that'd be great, about any other kind of mechanisms that were put in place. If we still have good connection. Let's see. Oh, sure. Yeah, no problem. Ammaarah is going to type, and the connection is very poor. As mentioned, we're all sort of hotspotting here in South Africa, so the connection goes up and down. And that's great. I mean, well, just wanted to thank you so much for the expertise and the conversation, and just kind of giving us this overview and such a unique insight into addressing these issues. So thank you so much. Yeah, and please feel if you're able to respond to a couple of those in the chat box. And thank you so much again for your time.